So we are now
Okay.
underway.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sue-Ling Ching, and it is my honor to be the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. We're very happy to have you here today for our Wellness Wednesday, and our topic today is Get Motivated, presented by Freeform Fitness. We're very excited to present this wellness series, and thank you to our sponsor IHR Advisory Services for supporting us. If there's one thing that we know or have come to know in our business community is that optimal health equals economic prosperity. And so with the conditions that we have all been navigating as we counter the impact of COVID-19 these last, I was keeping track for a while, but 10 weeks, these last 10 weeks or so, one thing that we have started to see is that businesses need to prioritize their mental and their physical well-being in order to prepare us well for an economic rebound. So thank you to IHR Advisory Services and to Freeform Fitness for allowing us to present this information today. As well, we do have a series of partners who support us throughout the year as community partners and event partners, and that is the Ottawa Citizen and Enbridge. So thank you very much to both of them as well. I won't spend too much time talking about the work of the Ottawa Board of Trade, except to say that we continue to advocate on behalf of the Ottawa business community, both on programs that are designed by the government to support us through this time, including access and implementation of the programs. But we have very actively over these last few weeks begun conversations with decision makers and stakeholders at all levels of government, including the leaders in our business community, about what recovery can look like, and understanding that if the last 10 weeks seemed complicated, recovery is going to be even more so as we take into consideration many different businesses and sectors and situations and how they have been able to manage over the last 10 weeks. And so we just want to say kudos to all of the members of our business community for banding together, for stopping the spread, and for your resiliency in continuing your business. Many have been able to pivot to be able to address the issues that have come up, and others have continued to look for ways in which they can reopen, and we support you. I just wanted to also say that we have this webinar series as a very tactical way of supporting our businesses, and we also are providing other benefits as we go through this, including many of the benefits that help save money, like our group insurance program, our ESSO program, and things like that. So I encourage you to continue to look for ways to utilize and leverage your membership of the Ottawa Board of Trade as we support you. So without further ado, I want to say welcome to Ashley from Freeform Fitness, Ashley Ann Laurie, who is the CEO at Freeform Fitness and has been a longtime supporter of the Board of Trade work, and we're thrilled to have her here today. And just a few words about Ashley. She fell in love with Freeform Fitness's values and culture over 10 years ago while pursuing a business diploma at Algonquin. Here is what she has to say about the studio. Freeform Fitness is more than just a personal training facility. It's a solution. It's a life-changing experience. It's a place of comfort, a place with no judgment, a place that motivates and inspires you to be the best you can be. Its consistency meets flexibility and accountability. It's a place of knowledgeable trainers, and she has seen the impact it has had on many people's lives. Either it's a member who needs to lose weight or a couple that needs more energy for their kids. Where could there be a better place for a career? So you can't ask for more than that, being able to marry a passion in a business. So she herself is a busy professional and understands what lies ahead with maintaining proper accountability to the results that we desire. And her goal has always to be able to put the personal in personal training. Today, she is dedicated to ensuring the level of service is top-notch and that members are maximizing their health. And I know that you have a lot to share with us, Ashley, today, not only about our own health, but how we can use the same mindset about staying physically and mentally well as we pursue business excellence. So welcome and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you, I guess, on a video chat. Very different, very challenging times ahead of us. Yeah, so I'm the CEO of Freeform Fitness. I've been with Freeform since 2007. We've been in business since 2006. My brother had originally started it, and then we kind of just took this and expanded it and exploded it. And now we have 6 locations here in Ottawa, and we've just expanded to the Boston market. Like Suling said, we strictly do one-on-one training, and originally we were a big box facility, and then 2008 hit and we had to pivot who we were, and we decided that we were just going to do one-on-one personal training. So I really appreciate everybody signing up today and joining us. You're going to be hearing from Frank and Vanya. They are going to give a little bit of a background who they are, and they've been with Freeform for a while. And I will let them take it from here. So Vanya, do you want to start off with me? Vanya's been with me for about 8 years as well. So I'll hand it off to Vanya.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Vanya. I'm one of the personal trainers at Freeform Fitness, and I'm also the director of HR. So I'm in charge of hiring all of the trainers that work for us, and onboarding them to make sure that they're well integrated into our systems. So Frank will actually be taking over for the bulk of the presentation, but Lynn thought it was a good idea for me to sort of chime in every so often to offer strategies that some of you may be able to implement on more of an organizational level. We all know that individually it's important for us to stay active and to stay well mentally and physically, but it's all good to instill those practices throughout your organization as well. Now, I know that some of you come from sort of like larger organizations, and some people viewing this, may be part of more smaller businesses with less staff. So it may actually be more challenging for the larger organizations to sort of implement some useful strategies. Because as a larger organization, you may have more resources to spend on programs and stuff like that. But as I'm sure a lot of you know, just because you have money to be able to spend on programs, it doesn't necessarily mean that the implementation always falls through the way it was intended. And then with the smaller organizations, since you are, am I not loud enough? All right, I'll try and speak louder. Yeah, so with the smaller organizations, with a smaller staff, you kind of get to know your people a little bit better, have a better understanding of what their individual needs are. So you're able to sort of tailor whatever programming you implement to better suit their needs. So yeah, I'll pass things over to Frank, and then I'll sort of chime in at the end of each of his points, just to talk a little bit more about how to expand what he says on more of the organizational level.
So I'm Frank. I'm also a coach and personal trainer at Freeform Fitness. A little bit about me and why maybe what I'm saying might be something you need to listen to. I've been at Freeform Fitness for just over a year, but I've been a coach and personal trainer for close to 17 years now. And I was a national team athlete in sprint and marathon kayaking for just over 15 years. So everything I say when we talk about motivation or achieving success in hard times comes from a lot of experience having to deal with that. A lot of my goals took 3-4 years just to see improvement. So I had to find other ways to make me happy or feel fulfilled during that journey. We'll start with our next slide, Ash. So my first tip, and I'm going to keep these broad in general and then kind of go into how you can really use these for each individual that you're trying to help, is routine. So the best way to make yourself motivated for something is always set up a habit or routine. My training, when I train, is always at the same time, 10 a.m. So I know at 10 a.m. there's not going to be any meetings in the way. I know that a half hour before that, I have time to prepare for what I'm going to be doing, whether it's putting on my shoes, getting my journal ready to write my training in, or putting on my favorite training shirt to kind of lighten up the mood to make me want to go into the gym or achieve whatever I'm trying to achieve. Order of operations is always important when you have your routine. Right before I go into the gym, I'm always ready and set up. I have my shoes on. My gym is always clean. Having that set order of operations will set you up for success. Any add-ons there, Vanya?
Yeah, so on more of an organizational level, I think that the most routine sort of way that people are able to get their staff together in a group is during any meetings that you have. And, you're really relying on, yourself or other members of your management team to sort of set the tone during these meetings. So when you're trying to instill, more of a healthy sort of culture within your organization, a lot of where things sort of fall off the map is if it's sort of like heavy-handed and forced onto everybody. So a great way to sort of just naturally start the conversation is to start off your meetings just by putting it out there and showing your staff members what you're doing to instill sort of like a healthier, more physical lifestyle. So before you get down to start talking about work, you'll be like, okay, let's start off these first few minutes just by sharing some active things or what you're doing to be healthier overall. And then just start off by sharing what you're doing first. So let's say, okay, I've been trying to take a walk every day around lunchtime. It's a great way to break up my day and get my body moving and my brain ready to start working again for the afternoon.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but it also shows you care. Like if you're talking about their health, you genuinely care about them. So I think it's really important from a business owner standpoint to check in with your people and say, how are you doing, mentally, physically? I think it's very, very important to be checking in on your people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right. Yeah, that's all I had. So Frank, next slide.
Well, I just want to touch on this. So as a business owner, we're very successful. We're very motivated, competitive. And, this is just another task we have to complete and we have to make it important. So even if you start with once a week and you have to protect that time in your schedule, like you would protect that important meeting with that client or that important meeting with your staff. You have to protect your workout time just as much and that habit just as much as you would anything else that's important in life. You have to prioritize it because it's important. It should be at the top of your list. Everything else will fall into place afterwards. And I can tell you that this has been the key to survival for me, since 2007, or else my stress would have been through the roof. So making it a priority, making sure it's in your schedule, like Frank said, and protect it at all costs. Don't move it around. That's your time. That's important time for you.
And to add and consolidate everything, why is it important? Why is routine important? Why is that piece of hour, half hour going to make you healthier? It is a time to take away the mental stress during your day and add a physical stressor. That's going to be a mental de-stressor. It is what's going to make you feel a little happier and a little bit more energy because you've changed up what you're doing in a day. that routine that you have to start with, right? And this is where we get into the nitty gritty, depends on the size or where you're at, where your goals are at, or where your abilities are at. It can be as simple as this week at 10 a.m. or at 12 lunchtime, I'm always going to put on my shoes and I'm going to sit outside for an hour and just relax. And then eventually you build up to going for your walk or going for your run or having it be a bike ride. And at some point, you're going to get to the point where you need to build a really good training plan. And then that's when you're going to ask for help from somebody who knows how to do that. And that routine is going to give you a step-by-step success manual on how to go from ground zero to you're an amazing athlete that everyone's like, wow, George, how are you looking this great? How are you always happy? Without that and without taking things back down to ground zero, it's going to be scary, it's going to be intimidating, and it's going to be really difficult to continue and stay motivated. When you have continuous steps that you're taking forward, that's how you're going to make it enjoyable and fun. Onto our next concept, community. Something that's always going to make you want to do what you're doing when it's difficult is having people to be shared with, share in the struggle, share in the success, and share in the support. Whether you're doing a video chat with a bunch of friends while you walk, or you have a little Google Doc and you're sharing your progress, but coming together and supporting each other is always going to be a big important aspect of success and motivation. I know when I walk into a gym, especially when I was training, I mean, I was a single athlete. I was there to be the best, but I had a group of 20 people training by my side to make sure that I would want to show up on the water. And I trained 3 times a day when I was a professional athlete, 6 a.m., 12 p.m., 4 p.m. It's hard to show up sometimes. It's easy to want to sleep in. It was my job, but knowing that my friends were there to support me and share in the struggle, and we were there to laugh. We were there to make fun of the program or cry when it just got really hard and be like, yeah, it's hard too, and I'm going to be hard beside somebody else.
And from a business standpoint, I don't know how many books I've read from leaders who have said, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you're surrounding yourselves with people that are not living that healthy lifestyle or practicing, those habits, then it's going to affect you. So to keep in mind that you want to surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you. They're going to support you, and they're also going to tell you that, yeah, this is great, and motivate you at the same time. You'll feed off that energy. So to keep that in mind too, and it's important to have somebody that's going to hold you accountable, or else, you're not going to do it by yourself. It's like anything in life. So having that accountability portion is really, really, really important.
Mm-hmm. And from an HR standpoint, when you're dealing with a group of people who, are coworkers who may have different interests, backgrounds, and interests, it's going to be very hard to find something that will appeal to everybody right away. And, you just want to be cognizant that, it's okay not to be able to reach everybody if you're trying to get something off the ground. So my best advice would be to sort of start off small, figure out, okay, who are a few people that are, really social and enjoy getting together as a group, and start off with them, whether it's, having group walks or get-togethers outside of the workplace where you're doing something active, or, during these times of social distancing, setting up, maybe a weekly video chat where you're getting sort of that social aspect and not necessarily talking about work. So just as an example, I have a few clients where outside of our one-on-one workouts, I've set up, a couple of video chats where we just meet to talk about, what we've done, how we've been, and it's, has nothing to do with exercise. So, a lot of people were missing sort of that, the social aspect and just being able to communicate with each other. And then I'm sure of a few people you work with who aren't all that into socializing or socializing. So it's okay if they're not participating quite as much. So an example that I always like to use is my husband. He's quite an introvert. He's a computer guy. And according to him, he would say that his quality of life has actually improved during the pandemic because he doesn't have to go on the bus to sit around with a bunch of people to get to work. He doesn't have to deal with the chit chat with coworkers that he hates. So he's able to go upstairs into our loft, sit at his office desk and get to work. And he's saying that he's actually more productive being alone than in the work environment. So everybody's a little bit different. You have to figure out, okay, what's going to work with some people, what's going to work with another group, and then sort of slowly build from there. So when you find something that works for a small group of people, you can sort of expand and try and reach other members of your staff.
And it's also like to give you a story, we have a client, he was the CEO of his company, and he purchased our intro offer, and it was the 8 sessions for $96 for his president of the company. And the president of the company lost 120 pounds with us. And you can't buy like that. He changed his life, because he really wanted to see his life improved and his health improved. And he really went for it and made a huge difference. And to this day, the president says he changed my life. Like, you can't buy that. You can't do that is life-changing. And I love that story so much. I think about it, at least once a quarter, just because it warms my heart, So anyways, Frank, back at you.
So tying everything together, from a leadership standpoint, and I'll relate it to a story. When I was head coach of a canoe club, my job for community and atmosphere was to create one where my athletes would grow into and create it their own, right? I wasn't forcing them to like a coffee meeting or a walk. I was giving space for them to do what they feel is best. I was giving a routine where they eventually knew that 10 minutes before the meeting, it was okay to chat about whatever. It was okay to have maybe a coffee showing. I know that me and most of my coworkers, we all love coffee. So it's very easy for me to, when COVID wasn't happening, to go out, grab a coffee and we sit around the desk and chat. And everybody in our gym, and Mania can attest to this, is different. I'm the person who talks an insane amount and everybody else is pretty darn quiet. But everyone has their role in the team, right? If you're looking at it from a sports standpoint, it's like a football team. Not everyone's the quarterback is going to shine. Some people love to sit there and watch someone kind of take the show, and everybody sometimes wants their turn, where you let people take turns doing things. Let people take the role they want, and then sometimes give other people opportunities to expand and grow themselves. Your job as a leader, as a manager, as an owner is to create an environment where a really good atmosphere and community can just happen. Usually when someone tells you to go have fun, you don't want to have fun. So something that we do at Freeform that not everyone thinks was super intentional is, so I'm not a manager, but what I do is I help manage the group as a whole because I'm at their equal level. So I bring that structure as an equal, and I'm a leader within the staff in order to bring them together. Because sometimes it's really hard to take advice or something from your boss saying, hey, go do this, go have fun. I want you to be smiling all the time. So pick 1-star staff that can help you out and kind of be your spy and come in from the inside and help people come together. It's a lot easier to hear something from your equal than necessarily your superior. So enjoyable. It's the simplest one. I put it last because it relates to everything else that we've said. The reason we're doing a routine, the reason we're making a community is we're making routine as easy as possible. So it's not difficult to do. So it's more enjoyable. Community, or making a group of people to enjoy it with. You want the thing you're doing to be something you enjoy, because what we're trying to create is a lifestyle, both in the work environment, both in your fitness environment. Whether it's riding a bike, going for a walk, doing weights, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit, rock climbing, ice climbing. I got made fun of so much for liking ice climbing in the winter. But it was just fun to be outside, moving and breathing in fresh air, and it was fitness. Some people, they just love gardening, and gardening for a little bit is moving, getting off from sitting. Make it enjoyable, make it something you want to do. Maybe it's your favorite pair of shoes. Use the equipment that you like. Don't always be afraid that you haven't earned this fancy piece of equipment. If you buying that piece of equipment is going to make you use it versus it sitting and being a clothes hanger for years, then you buy that piece of equipment. Example, in my home gym, I bought fancy colored competition weightlifting plates because I just really liked putting them on the bar and having that bar on my back. It makes me want to go work out more. And I'm good at working out. I love working out, but I still have little bitty things that I like to use and I want to use. So it makes me go out to the gym because, listen, I want to put those shoes on. I want to use that bar. I want to use those plates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from an HR perspective, it relates back to the previous slide, where you're starting off with finding a small group of individuals who have common interests just to get the ball rolling for you. And a lot of times I find that once people see that others are enjoying doing a certain activity or getting together as a group, they're thinking to themselves, oh, they seem to like they're having a lot of fun. Maybe I'll try it out and join one of these sessions one day. And sort of that's where you'll slowly grow from there. And then again, back to my previous slide where I was talking about how there may be, some individuals who are more introverted and not necessarily as interested in the social aspects. That's not necessarily mean that you shouldn't invite everybody as well. You always want to have the invitation be open and make it okay for people to choose not to join in. So having that culture of acceptance and being like, hey, we're doing this thing. Join if you want, but it's okay if it's not what you're into. It just makes everybody feel a little bit, less uneasy overall when they see that some people are participating and others may not be.
To build on that, and probably my favorite metaphor for sports, choosing not to go to the dance is a whole lot cooler than not getting invited to the dance. Like, super simple. Some people, they don't want to go, but they want to be that person who's decided not to go, right? Right now, some people would rather choose not to go to work than have to be told not to go to work. It's all about being in that control and making an environment where everyone feels welcomed and they can themselves make a choice. And example with our work, one of our coworkers, Jules is pretty quiet. We're pretty good friends, and we'll go out every once in a while and grab a little bit of food after our late night of work, because at Freeform we end around 8 p.m. But always, every time we do that, anyone who's at that gym at that time is allowed to come with us, and we joke and laugh, and the last thing we talk about is work, because we're just trying to de-stress and make working together enjoyable. Every time we have jokes in the gym in the morning or in the evening when things are just tired and everyone's like, oh, it's 6 a.m. I want to be healthy, but I'm tired. Someone's making a joke and someone's involving every client and every trainer in that. I'm not just having a one-sided joke with Vania or Jules or anybody else. I'm involving the entire gym and making one-on-one personal training together as a community. So all of my clients are good friends with everybody else's clients and are good friends with everybody's trainer. There's not a single client that walks into Freeform that hasn't heard me talk directly to them, ask them how they're doing. It's something that I think I specialize in, making sure that I have said hi to everybody. and I've involved everybody and given everyone a chance, because it's very hard to go and ask, can I come to this event? But if everyone's directly invited, hey, Ashley, do you want to come hang out? Hey, Vanya, right? It's going to be a lot easier to make that community and to make it enjoyable to put yourself out there in maybe a stressful scenario or anxious scenario.
And if anything, like what COVID's taught us in this pandemic is that life is like really short, and we have to have fun and we have to enjoy it. But our health is our number one priority. So, you know, taking that seriously is important. And you know, if you're stressed all the time, your body's not going to respond very well. Your cortisol is going to be high. So you can't lose the weight that you're looking to lose if that's your goal. Stress is the number one silent killer, I like to call it, because sometimes you don't even know you're stressed, but your body is. So to keep that in mind, and you know, for me, there's nothing like going to lift some weights when I'm stressed out, because I can release a lot of that energy into what I'm doing. I also need yoga in my circumstance, because for me, I need to just turn my mind off and really relax. And I like the stretching part of it. So I have a combination. And the key for us is, because we're a personalized approach, it's important to figure out what works for you and make sure it's an individualized program for you. And part of that is you have to enjoy what you're doing. If you hate it, if you're looking at it like a negative task, then it's going to be a negative experience. But if you're trying to make it a positive experience, whether that's, for me, it's like Frank said, wearing new workout clothes, new water bottle, you know, and then it's having that accountability piece is really important too. So we're trying to give you a little bit more of from experience as well. So anyways, that's basically where we're at with everything. We have more information just because we wanted it more to be a personalized approach. We thought we could open it up a little bit more questions, because you might have personalized questions. You know, we can touch on sleep, we can touch on stress. And if you're not comfortable asking a question, I'm sure Lynn can share our contact information with you, and you can just reach out to us. We're here to help you and your staff if that's the case. I know some of you do have staff, and Shopify's done an amazing job with their staff, just because they really have pushed the health side of it onto their staff. So if that's my one advice, is just make sure you're looking into taking care of their health. Lynn, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. So thank you guys very much. That was a really interesting perspective for me, as someone who's not an athlete and has always struggled with the idea of motivation. So I have my own questions that I want to start the conversation off with. But I just want to take a quick break so that people can start adding their questions into the chat. And while they're doing that, I'm going to share with you a couple of webinars that we have coming up as well. Next week, I invite you all to join us for our next Wellness Wednesday. And that's going to feature Heather Waddell Nutrition. And she is going to share with us 5 key strategies to help support your immune system. And during a pandemic, there is no better time to be looking at this kind of information. So I'm really looking forward to that one. I think Heather is actually on our webinar today, because her focus of her practice is sort of a holistic overview of wellness and well-being. And then the week after that, very, very excited to have Nicole Loretto from the Royal Ottawa Hospital join us. And she is going to lead us in a discussion, understanding and managing returning to work anxiety. So that will be a superb session for anyone who is either returning to work, or perhaps they're an HR manager or a team leader, and they're going to have to deal with their coworkers and team as they return back to the office. And then we have some rebound readiness webinars going on for the more business side. And next week on June 4th, MNP is going to talk to us about managing debt in a time of uncertainty. I feel that great business owners are aware of all possible options. And if you're not familiar with different types of business exits. This is a good time to at least understand what is out there and how you can move your business either forward or to its next stage. KPMG on the 9th is going to come and talk to us about navigating the new world, and they're going to focus on some very interesting topics, including cybersecurity, business interruption insurance, and valuation in a volatile environment. And this is certainly a volatile environment. And then most importantly, tomorrow, we are going to be joined by Scott Moran of Bytown Ventures, and he is going to talk to us about how to keep your team leadership meetings effective. And he's going to give us some practical tips and guidance on how to do that. That is absolutely key, I think, right now. It's partly about motivation, I think, too. But I think that'll be a great topic for everyone. And finally, I just want to take a moment and say once again, a big thank you to our sponsors. I'd like to thank the Ottawa Citizen as our community partner, and to Enbridge Gas for sponsoring our events, and particularly the team at Freeform Fitness for coming together. And they had a little bit of a last minute personnel shuffle, but managed to do a fantastic job. So thank you, Freeform Fitness, for your participation today and for leading this discussion. Now, I have seen some questions coming into the chat. So I'll let other people ask their questions first, and then I'll ask mine. So Christy wanted to know, is there a time of day that's best for working out? So morning or evening? And maybe if you all have some input, it'd be great to have kind of a round table of what all of your thoughts are on that.
I'll start. So I always start with things depends. And it always depends on the individual and how they react in the morning, how busy their schedule is, and how they react in the evening, right? You want to work out when you have the most energy and are the most motivated. Some people love the mornings, they're morning people. Some people love the evenings. But things are always more than just physiology or psychology. What's nice about the morning is if you work out first thing in the morning, you've already done something before you go to work. You've done something successfully, and you're going to set yourself up to have a more successful time at work. Some people like to end their day with a workout because then they can de-stress with that workout from their work day. Some people will like a more midday just because it splits up their day and it gives their mind a break from maybe a more monotonous day. I'll pass it off to Vanya for her input.
Yeah, so from like a physiological standpoint, there's been research that's shown that sort of morning tends to be sort of like an ideal time to exercise, just because it follows sort of your regular cortisol level pathway. So, you know, your cortisol levels tend to be highest sometime shortly after you wake up. And then in the evening, you know, it's a little bit lower. So exercise tends to raise your cortisol level, right? So that stressor hormone. So, you know, to some people, by raising your cortisol levels, adding more stress in the evenings could mean that it's harder for you to sort of wind down and go to bed later at night. But yeah, just like Frank says, you know, outside of physiological reasons, whatever makes it easiest for you to sort of fit it in your routine, you know, whatever makes it help you feel better is going to be the best for you, and that's going to be different for everybody.
Ash, did you want to add to that in any way before we move on to our next question?
No, I think they answered that perfectly.
Awesome.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And I'll just tack on to Vanya's because I always love to chat. Things are always more than just physiological. And like, unless you're at a very high level or you're more advanced from a physiological standpoint, it's not going to, like, those things don't matter as much as the other aspects matter. Like they tend to matter more at the beginning stages, or unless you have conditions or ailments that specifically need certain things changed, that's when those things are going to really matter. But the things that matter the most are mentally, what's going to make you be most successful and do it continuously, because being healthy isn't 1 or 2 sessions every now and then. It's continuous efforts accumulated over time. And then that is the physiological principle that really matters. So whatever you can do that lets you do that. And then from a psychological standpoint, what makes you successful for your day? Because we're training to be successful for a goal, right? It's for performance. And right now our performance is for work. So what's going to make your work performance the highest? And then you go from there.
Great. Our next question is, do you have a common stretch that can be done morning and evening?
I would always start off with, what is this person needing to stretch? I mean, I would always suggest a routine to stretch or have mobility both morning or evening, ideally morning because it sets you up again to be successful in the day. A common tool I would say that is always good to use is a foam roller or a cross ball or a foam ball to roll out. It just sets your muscles to be loose. But if I had to pick one stretch, for most people who are desk workers, it would be the couch stretch. We're in a high kneeling position and you're stretching the front of your hips, your hip flexor, because that tends to be the tightest muscle. It makes your back the most sore for the majority of people that are listening.
Great. Venya or Ash, did you want to add to that at all?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, so I have a question, and it's probably a multi-part question, and I hope I'm not putting you all on the spot. So I'm a little older. I'm in terrible shape. I have bad lifestyle choices, and I'm painfully aware of that. So where does somebody like me start? Like, what is the best possible thing that you can do to get yourself started and get off to a good start so that I would be engaged and motivated to keep going?
Well, first off, thank you for the honesty. You're not alone, to be honest. Most of our clients, that's where they start, so they come in, they send in an email request, and it's just taking that first step, to say, this is where I'm at. Where do I go from here? So, and that's the thing is it's a personalized approach. For you, we would start off very small, with first off is figuring out what your strong points are, where your weaknesses are, and then developing a program based on your needs right now. So I'll let the Frank and Vanya take it from here because they work mainly with the clients, and can give a little bit more of experience from there.
So from how do you start in a gym standpoint? Your main goal is to figure out what a warm-up is and get in a routine of warming up. And then from there, your main goal is to learn 3 basic movement patterns, because as soon as you've learned those 3, a squat, a hinge, and a press, everything that you do in a gym, you can work off of those. But from I don't want to go to a gym just yet, I want to start moving and being healthier, your first step is to find something you like. Usually it's going to be going for a walk. And you just start once a week. You set out, no matter what happens, no matter the weather, I am walking now. And then you take away everything else that would be distracted from that. And you deliberately take an action. Maybe you're walking now. Maybe you are taking the dog, cat, camel for a walk.
God, I wish I had a camel.
You take a very, very small steps and you go from there. I would always, if someone's like, I don't want to do anything, I'm scared, how do I become healthy? I'm like, go for a walk once a week and deliberately decide. So the first step is always a deliberate decision. And then as soon as you start working off of that habit of deliberately deciding, you can deliberately decide more often. And then after you've done that and you've built that habit routine of deliberately deciding, then you can do something that you decide, whether it's rock climbing, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's seeing Vanya or myself, whether it's kayaking like we've chatted about, or challenging yourself. And then you do a little bit of easy stuff that you can always do, and a little bit of hard stuff that challenges you, and you progress ever so backwards. My system when I train people is I never want someone to move backwards, so I take continuous small steps forward. If we need to pause, we can pause. But I'm always like, okay, we're gonna just put on your shoes. If you can't even walk, put on your shoes deliberately once a week at this specific hour. If you can walk, put on your shoes and walk. Because then you're always like, oh, I put on my shoes, I'm successful. And then maybe you walked 10 minutes and then that's an added bonus. But if you're like, I'm going to walk every day for an hour and it fails, then you're just going to make yourself go down and not want to do it. So have small set goals that work towards the process of hitting your big goal, which is be healthier and get there, which is this giant goal that's really important to have because it knows how your process is going to be.
Daniel, did you have any comments that you want to share as well?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, first off, Lynn, I can definitely tell you that you are not alone. So it's very common for us to meet new clients who have the same feelings that you do. You know that you have to move more, exercise, you know that you have to eat better, sleep better, be less stressed out overall, just to be healthier. But when you list out all those things and, think about all the things that you have to change, it can be super overwhelming, which, in most cases doesn't lead you to be any more motivated to make those changes. In fact, it's probably the exact opposite. Having that huge to overcome makes it less likely that you want to make that initial first step to make those changes. So, for me, I always tell people that it's not as big of a change as you think you need to get started. So you don't have to focus on doing everything and all at once. So, just pick one thing that you know that you can stick to, whether it's, eating better at one meal of the day or adding in one thing that you can do physically in a day. I find that once you get the ball rolling and you master whatever that one thing is, it gets easier to add in those other things that you want to work towards. So a lot of times, once people start exercising, they're like, oh, I don't want to waste all this work that I'm doing by, just having burgers and pizza every day. I really should be eating better so that all this hard work that I'm doing with exercising is put to better use. Or once they start eating better, they feel better and they're more physically capable of exercising a little bit more. So yeah, my best advice is just choose one thing and stick with it. And then slowly you'll be able to add a few other areas to improve upon, and it won't be so overwhelming anymore.
Great, thank you. I see that there's a number of questions in the chat, so let's dive in there and get to them. I love this question. What is the connection between exercise, mental well-being, and a strong immunity system? Because we need strong immunity systems right now.
So exercise is, for your mental health, is going to be something that's the opposite of your work. And it's going to be going from mental stress to physical stress. So it's balancing your body out. And it's going to raise your dopamine levels and make you happier and be able to de-stress you. I can let Vanya go because this is her topic of favorite.
Yeah, they're both definitely related, mental and physical health. And, I think a big part of it is sort of, figuring out what makes you feel best mentally first. I find that gets you into sort of the right headspace to be able to do something more physical. So, again, I'll use my husband as an example. So the super introvert who doesn't like to be around people. So, when you have somebody like that and they're sort of, forced to interact with people, on a regular basis, it can be a lot harder for them to want to expend more physical energy because, you know, they're under a lot of mental energy trying to sort of, you know, put themselves in more of that social environment when they may not prefer to be in that environment. So I have found that, you know, he's been able to want to exercise more now that he's, you know, alone and in his little space. So he has more of that physical capacity to want to do more. So I think figuring out, you know, how to manage your mental health and be able to get all that sort of reset and right will allow you to engage more in the physical side of things. And then, you know, once those two areas are firing on all cylinders, obviously that'll help boost with your immune system as well and make your body better capable of fighting any diseases or illnesses, stuff like that, you know, it might be facing. Hopefully that answers things clearly.
Great. Another interesting question. Are you aware of any statistics or business cases that relate wellness to productivity?
So I'm not sure on statistics, like in particular, but it goes with if you start your day off being successful and having something that has nothing to do with your work and you're successful at that, and then you go into your work, you're gonna probably be more successful at your work. If you have something that can de-stress or unfocus your mind in order to recover from your mind being overworked, you're gonna be able to do more at work. The amount of times I've had athletes or clients tell me that they can focus more at work after a session is every time I've ever trained anybody. Every very technical athlete I've ever coached in either Olympic weightlifting or sprint kayaking, it's made them smarter because they've had to focus on something that has nothing to do with something else. So it makes them more balanced, well-rounded, and it's all about de-stressing. If I was working out, if I have a meeting and someone was stressing me out in that meeting and I'm all in a huff and I go and I work out, then I can come right back and hit my PowerPoint a whole lot easier than if I didn't have that workout.
Great. And I personally believe that anything that your team or your workforce can do to make themselves healthier and more whole, whether it's exercising or eating better or taking care of their mental well-being, is just going to make them a better employee. And that's all there is to it, and more productive. We still have a couple more questions to get to, and if we have time, I have one more question that I want to ask. So Rachel wanted to know, what are your favorite no equipment required exercises? And I should say before I ask you to answer this, is that Freeform Fitness is coming back to us on June the 17th to discuss this very thing, because we cannot get to our gyms, we cannot see our personal trainers. So I think this is both a great question and definitely shows the interest in your next webinar with us. So just a little plug for Freeform.
Thanks, Lynn.
So my favorite exercise or training thing to do without equipment is always running. Like it's the thing that'll keep your heart rate the biggest and heart the strongest. But when we're talking about strength training, and what we're going to dive into in our next webinar is how to use minimal equipment or the best little small pieces of equipment that you can use for the most exercises, and that's going to be bands, because there's very few movements that you can't replicate with a band. When you are talking about no equipment and you want to give a big enough stimulus to create change, it's going to be isometric holds, which is a hold when you're not moving. So if I'm trying to work my chest and I'm pressing my hands together, I can press harder and produce more force that way versus doing 1,000 push-ups if I'm just really good at push-ups. It's a general answer to kind of give you an idea, but if I'm trying to make my clients the most successful with the minimal pieces of equipment, my biggest and first recommendation is a band that stretches and can create force.
Vanya, did you have your own personal preference?
Yeah, so I guess, what I can say is that I've had more than one client who's been doing these remote sessions with me remark that, these at-home sessions with minimal or no equipment has sometimes felt harder than some of our sessions in the gym. So you definitely don't need a whole lot of equipment to get a good workout in and to see improvement in your strength levels overall. In terms of specific exercises, for most women, even doing like a full push-up can be quite difficult. So I'd say, start off by working towards being able to do a proper full push-up. And, it'll do wonders for your upper body strength, core strength, everything. So push-ups.
Nice. And I'll add on to that to give more exercise specific recommendations. And why I don't want to really give one is because when I want to work a recommendation, I want someone to understand how to do it effectively and safely without having to ask me another question. And if I pick one exercise, what's probably going to happen is someone's going to be imbalanced in their muscle groups or movement patterns. So I would pick 3 movement patterns that I would want to make sure that you did no matter what, which is a squat, a hip hinge, and a push-up. And you can do that with no weight and make sure you're working all of the muscles you need to work to be healthy.
Great. We do have time for one last question, maybe 2. What are energy boosting foods?
So this question gets really nitty gritty.
We'll be on here for 3 hours.
So I'll give like my very simple answer. So when you're talking about macronutrients, so the 3 big nutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, the foods that are going to give you the most energy are carbs. But when you're talking about micronutrients, so those are the small nutrients that don't have a calorie associated with them. You're going to find those in vegetables. And those vegetables and fruits are going to produce the most energy, and most of those are associated with carbs. And that's going to give you the most energy and keep you the most healthy.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really complicated question for us to put to you at the end of the webinar. But, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Tyanda, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to the Freeform Fitness team if they didn't quite answer your question to its fullness. They've been very open about being happy to help people with their questions. So I do encourage you to reach out to them. So I do want to slip in my question, I'm sorry. So KPIs, or key performance indicators, are a big thing in the business world, and I would imagine in fitness they're pretty important as well. But are there certain goals or KPIs that we think are good for us to set that are perhaps undermining? So I'm thinking specifically, when you set out to start out a new workout routine, is it dangerous to say, I want to lose 15 pounds as opposed to, I want to be able to walk longer today and, be able to lift a weight that's higher? Like, Frank, you look like you're dying.
Yeah, he's like itching to answer the question. He's like, please let me say it. Please let me say it.
So Frank, go ahead.
So I love this question. Like, I adore that you asked this. Primarily because most people come to us with having a weight goal. And that's really important. And I'm like, great. But then as soon as we start, I like to stray away from measuring your performance on that weight goal. Because at some point you hit your weight goal and then you're like, okay, where do I go from here? And most people just want to keep continuing. And if I haven't developed another goal or another aspect of thinking, then that person's usually going to develop a mental health issue or something along the lines where they just focus on their weight. Because it has to not be about your weight to be healthy. It has to be about other performance standards, like performing tasks or performing lengths of time. And then the weight is just the secondary thing that I, as a trainer and as a coach, can measure on the side of getting progress and knowing when I need to adjust the program and we need to kind of halt certain aspects and change certain aspects. But it's really important that I teach my clients how to measure performance, either in movement or in abilities or in capacity to do something, and then just use that goal as only the overarching goal to decide on how we're going to achieve that, and have them use their performance indicators on more the process instead of necessarily that goal. And then we just kind of come back to the goal, and I'm like, look, you lost that weight and you feel healthy. And the reason I have this, and it's a bit of a controversial opinion with most trainers, because most trainers use weight as a performance indicator, is because I'm trying to make people also mentally healthy and continue their progression 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And at some point you hit your weight goal and then you're like, oh, I hit it, goodbye. And I'm like, no, you're not done. Like, you have to keep going. There's other cool stuff you can do. And I'll use one of my clients as an example, and their goal was weight, but they're a runner. So we took that weight and we definitely gave tools to make sure that weight was lost, and we measured it. But I added other goals like distance and pace for running. And that client ended up being able to achieve something we weren't even aware of. They were able to downhill ski for the first time in like 10 years. And they didn't think that would ever happen, like ever. And it was probably the proudest moment I ever had with this particular client. And like, that is going to be so motivating to do. And it's going to be so powerful to hold on to when maybe you struggle with the weight goal. Maybe it fluctuates a bit because stress happens or COVID happens. You can hang on to those to maintain that weight goal.
That's an awesome question. I've, having raised 3 young women, I always struggled with talking about issues about weight, and as opposed to health and fitness. And yeah, I think that's a dangerous conversation to get too mired into, I think, when you're establishing your fitness goals, as opposed to, well, I can only bend over and touch my knees, and so my goal is to touch my ankles and then my toes, and still measurable and achievable goals without it being tied around that whole issue of weight, mm-hmm. which is, I think, a dangerous way to do it.
And I've like coached professional athletes before, and I've never seen a professional athlete that didn't look amazing. And they never worry about their weight. They just worry about being able to accomplish really cool things and progressing. And because they're focused on one particular task, they end up being really good at that task. And they can push that task to the point where those goals and those abilities and that kind of push turns them into something that you wouldn't have been able to achieve if you just based your workouts on weight alone. Absolutely. And then it changes that talk, it changes that thing. And having coached women 12 to 18 and bringing them up in the sport of kayaking was really difficult. And it was trying to make body image for girls who were just jacked, like bigger biceps than most of the people that work at Freeform. They're just hugely awesome, and they loved their bodies. And it was the most beautiful thing to see these young women just turn into these most confident people. And it's something that I always want someone to have, no matter their level of activities.
That is an absolutely awesome note to end today on. I see that we've gone just a little bit over time, but there was just so many great questions coming in, and I love the answers. So I really want to thank Freeform Fitness. You guys did an amazing job, especially being called upon at the last minute a little bit, because unfortunately our regularly scheduled speaker, Gavin, who's on your team, was not able to join us today. But I encourage you all to reach out to Freeform Fitness with your questions if we didn't get everything answered for you today. This team has been amazing to work with in putting today's webinar together. So thank you all very much, and get outside, but stay hydrated because it's so hot out there. And truly enjoy the day, and I'm going to take this to heart and find my motivation to get going. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Lynn. Bye, everyone. Thank
Don't
you.
forget to join us on the 17th of June. Come back and see the Freeform Fitness. We're going to tackle this from a different perspective next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.